Part 62. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 613. Chi Heiran didn't talk to Fan Zijian for 3 days in a row. Fan Zijian didn't care at all, the key was that he was too busy to pay attention. Chi Heiran saw no one came to coax him after sternly for a day, and for the next 2 days, he walked past Fan Zijian every morning and evening with a stern face, and made a special hum to express his anger when he passed by. Fan Zijian twitched the corners of his mouth, holding his face and pondering whether he had gone too far. Just when he ordered Yanmo to search for good swords and horses, Mu Yangling sent someone to send a letter, and they will arrive in Qianan tomorrow. Fan Zijian immediately changed his words, "You don't need to look for knives and horses. We will go out of the city to pick up people tomorrow." Now that Mu Yangling has arrived, Chi Heiran's anger must have disappeared, and he saved a lot of money. They are very rich now. Don't worry, it's a fortune to save a fortune. Sure enough, Chi Heiran excitedly came to find Fan Zijian the next day and wanted to go out of the city to pick up people together. Fan Zijian saw that he was fully dressed and took a shower, so he nodded in satisfaction. He endured the smell of sweat all over his body for a long time up. "Aren't you angry with me?" Fan Zijian asked while riding on the horse. Chi Heiran gave him a sideways glance. "Which one of our brothers is with whom? When did you see me really get angry with you?" "But Zijian," Chi Heiran said with a slightly stern face, "don't provoke me about taking concubines in the future. What should I do if Aling misunderstands me?" "Look at how promising you are." Fan Zijian rolled his eyes at him, but sighed in his heart, "This is love, the mother is too humble, it has already deteriorated." Before Fan Zijian sighed, Xiaoting galloped towards him, shouting, "It's not good, it's not good, the general is not good." Fan Zijian turned his head to Chi Heiran and said, "How did Fei Bai teach him? He has been with him for 2 months but he still hasn't taught him." Xiaoting is Chi Heiran's new servant, because Fei Bai has too many things to deal with now, and he can't take care of some personal matters, and Chi Heiran is not used to using maids, so he chooses Xiaoting from the servants to make up for him. During this time, Fei Bai led him to teach. Chi Heiran said indifferently, "He's still young, he will be fine in a few years." Xiaoting is only 13 this year, and indeed he is quite young, but Fan Zijian felt that Chi Heiran was too forgiving to his servants, and when he was 13, he dared to come to the north to serve him. In just one sentence, Xiaoting had already galloped to Chi Heiran on horseback, and without waiting for them to ask, he quickly reported, "General, the princess asked Chief Jian to be picked up." Chi Heiran's complexion changed, and he asked, "Why did the princess go with them? Where's Fei Bai?" Xiaoting wanted to cry, there were too many of them, the princess was afraid of conflict, so she left with them, and Fei Bai stayed by Wang Fei's side to serve her. Fan Zijian hurriedly stopped Chi Heiran who was about to run away, and asked, "What did the princess explain before she left?" "Just say to be a guest, let the general pick her up." Xiaoting paused and said again, "The concubine didn't let the convoy follow, only 2 carriages, escorted by the guards in the mansion and the imperial guards." Fan Zijian breathed a sigh of relief, pulled Chi Heiran back and said, "Aling has a sense of propriety, she left all the burden behind, but brought the guards and imperial guards with her, everything will be fine." Chi Heiran's eyes turned red, and he said bitterly, "If anything happens to Aling and the child, I will never end with Miao village." At this time, Jian was losing his temper with his daughter Jinhua, "Who told you to bring the princess here?" Jinhua pouted and said, "I just want to see who she is. Why can she marry the prince, but I can't?" "Dad, go and tell her to let her leave the prince. The prince is a dragon and a phoenix among people. Such a person should be matched by a daughter." Jian was so angry that he turned his head and yelled at his wife, "Alu, look at your daughter, if there is a conflict with the Han people this time, Jinhua will die." Alu's face paled, and he argued, "Jinhua doesn't understand the rules of the Han people. In our Miao village, men and women are free to marry, and women also compete for their husbands according to their ability. It's a shame that the prince married a woman he didn't love because of the matchmaker's words. How do you know that people don't love you? Jian roared. What do you know? The prince and the princess are childhood sweethearts. I have already found out, he dotes on this wife very much, otherwise, I would have thought of a way to let him accept Jinhua as a wife concubine. Jinhua's eyes were slightly red, and she shouted, I will not be a concubine. If you want to be a concubine, you can't do it, Jian said angrily. The prince made an oath when he was in the previous court, that he will only marry one princess in his life, and he will not accept concubines, and he will not accept concubines. He turned around and ordered the guards around him to guard Jinhua, saying, You'd better hope that the princess can talk, otherwise it's up to me to deal with you. After Jian finished speaking, he hurried to meet Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling's carriage went straight into the Miao village. She opened the curtain curiously to observe the roots and customs outside. When she turned around, she saw Xiao Xiao's expression was uneasy, so she patted her hand and smiled. It's okay, Heiran and cousin should be here soon. Xiao Xiao frowned slightly, and asked, Why did the chief of the Miao village invite us here? We are just women. Mu Yangling smiled faintly. No matter why, the Miao village will never want to have a war with the imperial court. The imperial court's 200,000 troops are stationed in Qianan. Seeing that Mu Yangling was sure, Xiao Xia felt a little relieved, and began to look outside curiously. Seeing that the Miao village woman was wearing a little revealing clothes, she blushed slightly, and said in a low voice, This is too cold. Melted. Mu Yangling said with a smile, the customs are different. Most of the men in the Miao village wear short gowns, and some walk on the road with their chests exposed. Although the women wear more cloth, some of them show their arms and calves. But Yangling knows that this is not only the custom of the Miao village, but also caused by poverty. If you don't have enough fabric, then you can only wear clothes like this. Dazu's taxes on Miao villages have always been heavy, but now Daki's taxes on Miao villages have not yet been formulated. The carriage passed through the streets of Miao village and arrived at a gate. Mu Yangling was a little puzzled when he saw a middle-aged man standing in front of him with a smile on his face. Fei Bai reported outside, Princess, Chief Jian came to greet you in person. Mu Yangling got off the carriage with the little bear in his arms, and Jian greeted him with a smile. Wang Fei came to the humble house, it is so radiant, so radiant. Mu Yangling smiled and said, Chief Jian's Chinese is really good. Jian looked at the princess who was about the same age as his eldest daughter, and said embarrassingly, I only know the sentence, and he wrote it down after seeing Fan Junqi last time. Mu Yangling didn't expect Chief Jian to be so sincere, and said with a smile, language is meant to be learned from each other continuously, and the chief can see his ability and hard work if he learns it quickly. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 614. After Jian invited Mu Yangling in, he explained his invitation. He hoped that Mu Yangling would have a good impression of the Miao village, which would promote the development of both Han and Miao in the future. Of course Mu Yangling didn't believe it. The people who came to invite them at the beginning were aggressive, and there was a tendency to force them to invite them if they didn't come, but now Jian's attitude is surprisingly good. They strongly please come, that is, Jian has schizophrenia. But she didn't say anything, she just nodded with a smile, promising that the Han and Miao family will make progress together in the future. Just when the two of them tried their best not to be cold, a gorgeously dressed girl rushed in. Jian's complexion changed slightly, and he stood up and pointed at the girl, who let her in? Take her down. Abba, Jinhua gave Mu Yangling a hard look, broke free from the maid's hand, and shouted, I won't go, if you let me go, I'll jump off the cliff. She pushed away the maid, rushed to Mu Yangling, looked her up and down bluntly, and said with a sneer, You are the prince's concubine? You look so ugly. This is the first time Mu Yangling has heard people say that she is ugly. She looks like a great-grandmother with a beautiful appearance. In the past 2 years, she has gradually grown and her appearance is even better than that of peaches and plums. Chi Heiran looked at her face several times in a daze. She looked back at the girl carefully, seeing that her eyes were glued to her face. She couldn't help but pursed her lips into a smile, knowing that the other party was wrong. She turned her head and asked Jian, Chief Jian, who is this girl? Jinhua raised her head and said, I am the prince's future concubine. Mu Yangling put away the smile on her face, looked her up and down, and asked Jian, Chief, I didn't expect you to let the madman in. Not to mention Jinhua, even Jian couldn't help being angry. His face darkened. Princess Mu, this is my youngest daughter, although she is a little ignorant, but what you call a lunatic is too much. In my opinion, her behavior is no different from that of a lunatic. Mu Yangling insisted, since you call me a princess, you should know my identity and say in front of me that she is the future princess. Is it implying that you are going to kill me and replace me? The chief said just now that he hoped that Han and Miao will coexist peacefully and develop together, but in the blink of an eye, he wants to kill me. Isn't this crazy? What is it? Jian stammered slightly, no, she didn't want to kill you, princess, you misunderstood. He scratched his head and didn't know how to explain. Compared with his clansmen, his Chinese can be regarded as proficient, but it is limited to daily language and some of the most common communication, and it will not be able to go deeper, so he blushed at this time and didn't know how to explain it, but he couldn't. This caused Mu Yangling to misunderstand, so he could only explain roughly, Jinhua has a crush on the prince, and she wants to marry him. Xiao Xiao's eyes widened at the side. She had never seen such a brazen person, and it was too unconventional for a woman to ask her original partner to let him go when she fell in love with a man. Mu Yangling felt that rough conversations were easier to solve the problem. Although she was also very angry, she replied, whoever she likes, who will marry her? Mu Yangling turned back to meet Shang Jinhua's gaze, and said critically, you are not beautiful, you don't have any outstanding abilities, and your family background is not obvious, why should you let others marry you? Jinhua was furious, I am the chief's daughter. Mu Yangling said mockingly, it's amazing, how many people are there in your village? Before the chief could stop it, Jinhua shouted, we have more than 7,000 people, and we are the largest tribe in this area. It's really a lot, Mu Yangling said insincerely, then do you know who my father is? Who cares who your father is? It doesn't matter, but my father leads an army of 120,000. 120,000 is against 7,000, do you think your identity is more valuable, or my identity is more expensive? Jinhua opened her mouth slightly, staring at Mu Yangling bitterly. Mu Yangling continued to laugh and said, Chi Heiran is mine, not because my family background is better than yours, nor because I am prettier, more capable, or smarter than you, but because he is Chi Heiran, so he is mine. Yes, I like that you stay away from him, or I'll kill you. Jinhua's eyes widened, she turned around angrily, and yanked off the whip hanging on the wall. With one flick, there was a loud slap on the ground, and she shouted, can you kill me? Mu Yangling looked at her with a smile, and broke the table next to her with a skillful hand, and then broke the whole table with bare hands under the dumbfounded eyes of everyone. She patted the sawdust on her hand, said, it's not that I can only wave a whip and shout, but I have really killed people. Said, red light flashed in his eyes. Jian met her gaze, only felt a chill all over his body. It was the evil spirit of having seen blood. This princess is not a delicate and weak woman flower in the backyard of the Han people. Jian's face turned pale knowing that his daughter had kicked the iron plate. He put away all his previous dissatisfaction, with an apologetic smile on his face. Jian was still like this, and Jinhua, who was directly suppressed by the side, was even worse. She only felt her body sank and was almost out of breath, and she couldn't help but feel fear in her heart. When she came back to her senses, Mu Yangling's eyes had recovered. She looked at her with a smile that was not a smile, but her back was wet. Jinhua stared at Mu Yangling for a while with red eyes, and said, then I'll be his concubine. Mu Yangling snorted, neither Qi Heiran nor I care about you being his concubine. The good-tempered Jian saw his daughter being disliked so much, he couldn't help feeling a little angry. He remembered his previous concerns, and said with a little dissatisfaction, Princess, my daughter is very precious. This is not common, Mu Yangling interrupted him, Master Chief, what is precious in your eyes may not be important to us. Your daughter is naturally precious, and we are willing to give it within a reasonable scope. She respects, I just hope she can respect herself. It's like the prince and I both value friendship and integrity, but in your opinion, these things may not be worth mentioning. Chief Jian hurriedly said, no, we also value this beautiful quality. He was a little distressed, as if he was led away by the nose by Mu Yangling, but his family happened to be away, and his daughter kept dragging his feet. He was completely unable to deal with Mu Yangling, who talked about changing topics. The devil knows why Han people always talk it's jumping. In the past, the Han people only came into contact with family members, but love and honesty are indeed virtues, and they must recognize it, otherwise what will happen if the Han people use this as an excuse not to show love and honesty to them in the future? It's rare that we have the same things that we value. If that's the case, then please ask the chief and the chief's daughter to respect what we value. Before Qi Heiran and I got married, he made a poisonous oath to marry me for the rest of his life. Concubines are not accepted as housemates, and they are not even allowed to recruit prostitutes, and Emperor Jinjian of the Great Zhou dynasty is still our witness. Chief Jian and Jinhua opened their mouths wide. Jinhua swallowed and asked, what if you break your oath? Mu Yangling smiled slightly, the daughter who slept with him will die without a burial place, and after death, she will not be reincarnated as a human again. Jinhua shrank her neck, feeling that this oath was very poisonous. Xiao Xia gave her a sympathetic look, and she glanced at the chief carefully, seeing that he didn't find any loopholes in Mu Yangling's words, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Mu Yangling asked Jinhua, do you still want to sleep with my husband now? Jinhua blushed and argued, I didn't want to sleep with him, I wanted to marry him. Then don't even think about it, even if I die, Qi Heiran will not marry another, Mu Yangling said, besides, I'm not dead yet. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 615. Jinhua was captured by Mu Yangling's arrogance, she was speechless for a while, and the Xioxia family beside her was already numb. Fortunately, these words were said in Miao village, so she would not speak nonsense, otherwise she would ask someone to pass these words back in the capital. I don't know what kind of blame Mu Yangling will receive. What she said was outrageous. Jinhua's complexion changed again and again, Qi Heiran's heroic figure sounded in her heart and she was very reluctant to give up. She looked at Mu Yangling's hand very ready to move, if she could defeat her. Jian glared at her daughter, pressed her down, stepped forward, and said with a smile, since the prince and concubine are so affectionate, the little girl will naturally stay far away from the prince. Mu Yangling said with a good-tempered smile, it's a husband and wife who love each other deeply. Yes, the love between husband and wife is deep. Jian wiped his sweat, and looked at the door again. Jiake, my eldest son-in-law, come back quickly, Han women are so difficult to deal with, let alone Han women man. As soon as Jian's mind fell, the people from the sentry tower rushed to report, my lord, a lot of soldiers are coming to our stockade. Chief Jian raised his heart. He knew that something would happen if his daughter coerced someone like this. Since the princess dared to say so confidently that the prince must have her, it can be seen that they have a very good relationship. If his wife is arrested, you must also take someone to snatch him back. Chief Jian prayed and looked at Mu Yangling. After the war, the Miao village really couldn't stand the torment. The people's life was already hard. If they were beaten by Qi Heiran again, they might really be exterminated. Mu Yangling got up and said with a smile, "I'm afraid the prince knew that we were visiting the village, so he was anxious to come over and have a look." "Chief Jian, why don't I go with you to meet him?" Chief Jian hurriedly nodded. Mu Yangling asked someone to bring Heijun over. Mu Yangling touched its nose and asked Xiao Xia, "Cousin, do you want to go together?" Xiao Xia doesn't know how to ride a horse, she only knows how to ride a horse. She hesitated. Mu Yangling smiled and said, "Cousin must come with Heiran. Why don't I ask the guards to hold the reins for you? Don't worry, the horses we ride are all very docile." Xiao Xia nodded instantly, got up and said, "Then I will go with you." Getting along with Mu Yangling day and night for a month is not just sitting still. The relationship between the two women has made a qualitative leap during the journey, and Xiao Xia's character is pure and weak, so Mu Yangling communicates with her more casually, so she often shows her in front of her own worldview, outlook on life and values. Leaving aside such things as world outlook, Xiao Xia felt that some of Mu Yangling's ideas were too bold, but she couldn't help but feel that she was right. For example, the way husband and wife get along with each other. The consecration of a wife is not only about being submissive, but also about striving for a purpose, such as pursuing. Mu Yangling had given Qi Heiran all kinds of presents, and he also tried his best to prepare gifts for him. Xiao Xia responded, "I also prepared them for my husband." Mu Yangling asked with a smile, "Then when you gave him the gift, did you tell or hint to him that you admire him very much?" Xiao Xia's face was flushed with embarrassment. "They are already husband and wife, do you need to say such words?" Of course, the effect of saying it and not saying it is much different. Although Xiao Xia blushed at the time, she remembered what Mu Yangling analyzed. Now that Fan Zijian came to pick her up, if she showed up at the gate of the village, he would be a little happy to see her for the first time, right? While thinking about it, Xiao Xia showed a sweet smile on her face, and with the help of Mu Yangling, she sat on the horse. Mu Yangling also rode on the black horse, and was about to hit the horse and go ahead, when the little bear who had been sleeping soundly in the carriage suddenly woke up. He opened the curtain and saw his mother riding on the horse, surrounded by an unfamiliar environment. With a loud wow, he burst into tears, leaned half of his body out of the car window, and kept opening his hands to Mu Yangling, but he couldn't say a word, he could only cry. Mu Yangling was heartbroken, so he hurriedly rode forward, took the man out of the car window and put him in front of him, wiped the tears from his face and said, "Silly boy, why are you crying? Isn't mother here?" The cub turned around and hugged his mother's neck, buried his whole face by her neck, and only cried. Li Chun hurriedly jumped out of the carriage and said, "Princess, the young master seemed to have a nightmare just now." Mu Yangling hurriedly hugged him tightly, patted him on the back lightly and said, "Have you had a nightmare? It's okay, mother is here, no one can bully you, mother can beat all the bad guys away, okay." It took a while for the little bear to raise his head and start to show his eyes to look around. Mu Yangling smiled. Seeing his mother's smile, the fear in the little bear's heart dissipated. He turned his head and looked around, and saw that he was sitting there too. Immediately, he suddenly became excited, lifted his buttocks and bounced a few times, then found a comfortable position in his mother's arms and sat down, looking ahead with bright eyes. Mu Yangling turned his head and said to Chief Jian, "I made you laugh, if you don't mind, I will take the child with me." Chief Jian couldn't wish more. In this way, Chi Heiran's anger should be relieved when he saw that his wife and children were safe. The fact is also the same. After hearing the news, Chi Heiran asked people to go back to rescue the soldiers, and Chi Heiran, who rushed here with Fan Zijian and others, couldn't help but change his face when he saw Mu Yangling and the others appearing leisurely at the gate of the village on horseback. Slowly, this made the Miao people who guarded the gate of the village and tried their best to prevent Chi Heiran and the others from entering the village slightly relieved. Chi Heiran rushed forward full of vicious aura. If it wasn't for the fact that the war had not been over for a long time, their village had always maintained a first-level combat readiness mode, and they might not be able to stop him. Chief Jian hurriedly stepped forward and asked someone to put down the cable bridge, and greeted him personally. "King Rongjun, you are here, please come inside, the princess and the young master are waiting inside." Chi Heiran was about to step forward, but Fan Zijian stopped him for a while, so he had no choice but to follow. Chi Heiran rode straight to Mu Yangling, looked at his son whose eyes were rolling around and asked, "Why are the child's eyes wet?" Mu Yangling smiled and said, "I just woke up after having a nightmare." Chi Heiran took a closer look, and found that the child's left cheek was indeed marked with sleep marks, and the anger in his heart subsided, and he opened his arms towards the little bear. The little bear looked up at his father for a while, and then he opened his arms and let Chi Heiran hug him. Chi Heiran was still calling him a fool in his heart, and he didn't recognize him after only 2 months of seeing him, but who knew that after hugging the little bear, he directly supported his face with one hand, keeping a safe distance from him. His little nose shrugged, and after a long time, he seemed to be sure that Chi Heiran was still clean, and then he plunged into his arms, his eyes moistened of. Fan Zijian burst into laughter when he saw this. Chi Heiran was so angry that his face turned blue. Mu Yangling was surprised by his son's intelligence, and then he was thankful that although the little bear was carved out of the same mold as Chi Heiran, he was more particular than his father. It's more hygienic, and it's a good son. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 616. Except for Fan Zijian, no one knows why the 3 members of the family have different faces, but this does not prevent Chief Jian from knowing that the alarm has been lifted. He hurriedly stepped forward to check his presence, saying that he was a visitor from afar, and asked Chi Heiran and his wife to stay in the Miao village for one night. Let them Miao men clean up the dust for the princess. Chi Heiran doesn't know the truth yet, so naturally it is impossible to stay. Their whole family is here. This Miao village really has different intentions, isn't it called a pot? What's more, the husband and wife haven't seen each other for a long time, so it's even more impossible to stay here. Chi Heiran refused. Chief Jian thought for a while and said, "It's better to wait 2 days, when my son-in-law and son-in-law come back, I will set a table of wine for the princess to wash away the dust." Mu Yangling nodded slightly to Chi Heiran, and Chi Heiran complied. Jinhua looked at Chi Heiran and hesitated to speak. When Mu Yangling saw it, he reined in his horse, pointed to Jinhua and said to Chi Heiran, "My lord, this is the daughter of Chief Jian. She said she has a crush on you, but I don't know you. Do you have any humming ideas?" Chi Heiran shuddered, retracted his stomach, straightened his waist, straightened his back, and said directly without glancing to the side, "No, Aling, I only want you in my life. I don't think there will be many other women. Have a look." Even if Jinhua is a Miao girl, she can't bear Chi Heiran's direct rejection at this time. She stares at Chi Heiran in shame and angrily, shakes her head and runs away. Fan Zijian frowned slightly, and gave Mu Yangling a disapproving look, but did not speak. Chi Heiran turned his head and gave a slight nod to Chief Jian, who looked embarrassed, and then rode away. After leaving the village, Xiao Xia sat on the carriage. Fan Zijian glanced at the carriage, then turned to Mu Yangling and said, "I know you don't want Heiran to take a concubine, so you don't have to treat him like this in front of outsiders. You Daijin. The Miao people are straight-minded, and speaking directly is more effective than hinting. If they stop thinking about it, they will be in constant trouble in the future. Mu Yangling said, it is impossible for me to keep an eye on Heiran all the time, and separate from him for this reason in the future, might as well cut off their thoughts in the first place. This is why she threatened Jian and Jinhua as soon as she came up, and told them clearly that Chi Heiran could not give up on her, nor could she take a concubine, and she would never accept that Chi Heiran had other women besides her. Fan Zijian was touched by Mu Yang's spiritual energy, and he got off the horse and said, you guys are welcome. One is willing to fight, the other is willing to suffer, why should he worry about them? Fan Zijian got into the carriage directly. Compared with the bumpy horse, he was still more used to the comfortable carriage. The horse was so fast that it almost knocked his bones apart. Mu Yangling turned around and found that Chi Heiran's face was not good looking, but it was outside, and it was not easy to talk about it in depth, so he could only press his doubts first. With a blue face, Chi Heiran wrapped his son in a cloak and carried him back to the city. The military camp was stationed outside the city of Jizhu, and Chi Heiran was still living in a squire's house, and the squire's family moved to live in another courtyard. It's just that the courtyard with 3 entrances is not as big as the ones in the north and the capital, and it is nearly 1/3 smaller. With so many people living in it at once, it suddenly seems a bit cramped. When Mu Yangling saw Chi Heiran slamming the door in with his son in his arms, he knew he was angry. Mu Yangling didn't know why he was angry, but he knew the priorities, and left everything to Wang Ma and Li Shun, and she hurriedly followed. The child is sensitive and senses his father's emotions. The little bear curls his neck and nestles in his father's arms. When he sees his mother coming in, he immediately opens his arms to her. The appearance of crying or not makes people feel distressed. Mu Yangling hurried forward to hug the child, complaining, you scared the child. Chi Heiran immediately suppressed the evil spirit around him, forced a smile on his face, and said, give the child to the wet nurse. Mu Yangling coaxed the little bear, and saw that he was no longer afraid, so he carried him out to the nanny, but brought him back after a while. Mu Yangling said helplessly, this child probably feels that the place is strange, and he doesn't want to be with him. Nanny, forget it, anyway, he can't understand what we say. Mu Yangling put him on the couch to play, sat on the side, looked at Chi Heiran, and said, what's wrong with you? Your face is so stinky. Chi Heiran was a little angry, and more sad, is it so unworthy of your trust? You are so guarded against everything. Mu Yangling was not convinced, why are you on guard? You haven't guarded against me yet. Chi Heiran couldn't help but said loudly, didn't you tell Zijian just now, what do you mean by separate for this reason? What you think about every day is to be separated from your master? Yes, is it because I can't make a single mistake? Is it because you will leave me as long as I make a wrong step? Mu Yangling was taken aback for a moment, and then became furious, what mistake do you want to make? Chi Heiran, how dare you make such a mistake? I ask you, is it because if you make a mistake, you will leave without looking back, without giving me a chance? Chi Heiran looked at her with red eyes. Mu Yang's heart was pierced by a knife. She felt that Chi Heiran must have made a mistake, otherwise why did he ask this question so persistently? Her tears fell down with a wow. She turned around and lay down on the couch and started to cry. Wow, she couldn't bear it, she couldn't bear to leave Chi Heiran, but what should I do, my heart hurts, and I am so dirty. Chi Heiran was taken aback for a moment, looking at Mu Yangling who was crying bitterly, feeling a little helpless. He patted her on the shoulder clumsily and said, why are you crying? You haven't cried yet, obviously I was wronged. Mu Yangling turned his head and kicked the man off the couch, shouting, why are you wronged? Why are you wronged by sleeping with other women? Chi Heiran jumped up, since when did you sleep with another woman? Mu Yangling, don't push yourself. You didn't sleep with other women, why are you asking me about my mistake? Mu Yangling wiped away his tears and asked, or do you want to make this mistake now? Chi Heiran was agitated in his heart. After walking around the room twice, he clenched his fists and said, I don't understand why you don't believe me. I said that you are the only one in my life, and I will try my best to do it. You are still suspicious, always thinking about leaving. Wait, Mu Yangling interrupted him, since when have I been suspicious and always thinking about leaving? I trust you a lot now, but I have never doubted you for nothing. The most important thing between husband and wife is trust me, Heiran, I gave you this. But you said that as long as I make a mistake, you will leave me. That's also on the premise that you make mistakes. Mu Yangling bit the three words make mistakes emphatically. Chi Heiran was silent, and Mu Yangling looked at him with red eyes. Chi Heiran, tell me, have you repented? No, Chi Heiran categorically denied that there were many people sending women to him, and he did not deny that he was moved by seeing those women, but he has always adhered to the principle that those women are only beautiful in appearance, but it can't compare to 1% of Aling's. But with more entertainment in the future, there will be more and more such things, and even he will get drunk. Chi Heiran is a little afraid, if one day he gets drunk, his self-control drops, and he obeys his own desires, then Aling will he also leave himself and never see him for the rest of his life. Whenever he thinks of this, Chi Heiran feels that his heart is being held in his hands and it hurts. He is reluctant to let Aling be sad, and even more reluctant to let her leave. Chi Heiran didn't speak, but just looked straight at Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling understood what he didn't say, and her face turned pale instantly. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 617. She met Chi Heiran when she was 9 years old, and married him when she was 14. She has known him for 9 years. Is this the 7-year itch coming early, or is it delayed by 2 years? Mu Yangling sat on the couch with a dazed expression. Originally, it was just because Mu Yangling didn't trust him too much, and he didn't trust himself too much, so Chi Heiran, who was angrily questioning him, became uneasy. He touched Mu Yangling's hand carefully and said, Don't you, angry, I just thought about it that way. No, I didn't think about it that way, it's just a thought that flashed through me sometimes, and I didn't intend to do that. Mu Yangling didn't speak. Chi Heiran sighed, scratched his head in annoyance, and finally could only sit beside Mu Yangling and stare blankly at her. The little bear who was left behind by the two turned his head to look left and right, and finally got angry. He slapped Chi Heiran on the face with a cry of ah. Looking at his mother, seeing that his mother didn't respond, she stepped forward and took Mu Yangling's hand to hit Chi Heiran in the face. Seeing the anxious look on little bear's face, Mu Yangling felt sour, so he opened his arms and hugged him, coaxing him in a low voice, Mother is fine, Mother is fine. Chi Heiran turned around in a hurry, took Mu Yangling's hand and slapped it on the face. Aling, I was talking nonsense, really, I only flashed those thoughts twice when I was dreaming, and I usually don't even think about it. I don't want to. Chi Heiran felt a little regretful, maybe he shouldn't have quarreled with her in the first place, so he wouldn't be able to help showing that thought. When this idea came up, Mu Yangling said, The most real thoughts are in the dream. She said, You don't have to be upset, you think you shouldn't have said those words before, since you have an idea, don't say it this time, show it, and next time, I will notice it too. Could it be that Aling can read minds? Mu Yangling picked up the little bear and walked out. Chi Heiran became anxious, opened his hands to stop her and said, Where are you going? Go to eat. Mu Yangling bypassed him, and said, Don't worry, I won't just take the child away like this. If I want to leave, I will officially notify you and leave in a fair manner. Chi Heiran's eyes turned red anxiously, How can you do this? I'm so light in your heart, but you just have such a damn thought that you're going to leave me. Mu Yangling walked around Chi Heiran and didn't talk to him. Chi Heiran stared at her back with red eyes, turned around and let the soldiers surround the yard. He called Fei Bai and Zhu Liang, and said with a blue face, "You have guarded the yard for the Lord, and the princess and the young master are not allowed to go out. If they leave, the Lord will kill you." Fei Bai and Zhu Liang shuddered. Looking at each other, they knew that the couple had quarreled. The two quickly agreed, and after they left, they discussed it. One would be on the day shift and the other on the night shift. The movement outside was not hidden from Mu Yangling. She sneered and turned to go to dinner. She really wanted to leave and expected these people to guard her? But if they really wanted to separate, Mu Yangling wouldn't just leave secretly like this. If he wanted to leave, he would leave openly. But is she really leaving? Mu Yangling became confused. In this world, Chi Heiran is the one who understands her best and tolerates her the most. Without Chi Heiran, she will never find another person who can tolerate her like this. Although Mu Yangling had never been in love in her previous life, she also knew that the heart-pounding feeling she felt for Chi Heiran was love. Maybe it wasn't love at the beginning, but friendship and family affection mixed together. After so many years, each other has long been accustomed to each other's existence. Mu Yangling couldn't bear to part with Chi Heiran, but she couldn't bear to be with others. She didn't need to experience it, she just couldn't stand it just thinking about it. Do you want her to endure the nausea and greet Chi Heiran with a smile? Mu Yangling was never someone who could wrong himself. Chi Heiran woke up with a start, turned his head to look at his wife on the other side, and saw that she had shrunk herself into a ball. Her shoulders were trembling, and there was a whimpering sound from the quilt. Chi Heiran was heartbroken, and he patted the bed, went up and hugged her shoulders, and complained, "Just bully me, I didn't say I wanted to take a concubine, I didn't say I wanted to accept the room, I didn't even think about it, I was just worried if you can't help but listen to other people's words and you leave because of this, you will show me face." Mu Yangling wept the pillow towel, seeing Chi Heiran making trouble so unreasonably, he turned around and kicked him and said, "Do you have that nasty idea or am I wrong? Is that so embarrassing?" Chi Heiran hugged Mu Yangling tightly, not letting her move, and argued, I'm just worried that if the master drank alcohol or was drugged or something, he made a mistake, will you leave me too?" In the end, Chi Heiran's focus has always been whether Mu Yangling will leave him, not that he wants to make mistakes. Chi Heiran admitted that he had become lustful, but under the premise that Mu Yangling would leave him, all his lustful desires were put away, and he was always panicked, and it was also based on the fact that Mu Yangling would leave him. As long as you have a firm mind and no lust, what kind of problems are these? Chi Heiran hugged Mu Yangling and said nothing. Mu Yangling's tears fell on the back of his hand Papa, and cried in a low voice, "I know, you are just tempted." Chi Heiran held Mu Yangling's hand tightly, almost wanting to embed him in his arms. "I don't care, anyway, you are not allowed to leave the Lord." Mu Yang lay in his arms with a dead heart, let him hold him, and asked, "If you insist on keeping me, it's just a shell, what's the use?" Chi Heiran buried his face in Mu Yangling's neck, and said in a muffled voice, "You are not allowed to give up on master." Mu Yangling was silent for a long time, and finally asked, "What if I had something to do with another man after drinking, or if I saw a handsome man and wanted to have something to do with him in my heart, what would you do?" As soon as Chi Heiran froze, he turned the person over and pressed her down with one turn. He stared at her with red eyes. "Which man do you want to have sex with?" Mu Yangling smiled wryly, "Look, I just said that and you couldn't take it anymore, but you really thought about it, Chi Heiran, can you understand my heartache?" Chi Heiran's expression changed, and then he looked at her distressedly, and said cowardly, I am a man." "Emotions don't distinguish between men and women," Mu Yangling said in a barely audible voice. "If you want to live with 3 wives and 4 concubines, you shouldn't make such a promise before you get married. Maybe I won't marry you, maybe marrying you won't give you your sincerity, you just care about your husband and raise your children like an ordinary woman, and live a stable life. Chi Heiran's heart was pierced by a knife. He lay on Mu Yangling's body, and said repeatedly, I don't want to, and I won't think about such things in the future, even if others force me with a knife, I will never change my face heart. Aling, don't think about leaving me, really, I hurt here, it hurts. Chi Heiran held Mu Yangling's hand to his heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 618. Chi Heiran kissed her with his eyes closed, and a hot tear fell on Mu Yangling's face. Only then did Mu Yangling realize that his eyes were also wet with tears. Mu Yangling touched his face in distress, and then hugged his neck. Chi Heiran couldn't help getting excited, lowered his head and put her lips in his mouth. When Mu Yangling woke up, it was already daylight outside. She sat on the quilt and laughed at herself. She was too anxious yesterday. It seems that Jinhua did affect her, although she was very confident at the time. Chi Heiran saw her go at the door, hesitated for a moment, then turned around and brought a bowl of porridge in for her. Mu Yangling shook his head slightly, I haven't rinsed my mouth yet, don't eat. Mu Yangling took his hand and said, come up, let's talk. Chi Heiran immediately took off his shoes and went to bed, tentatively embraced his wife. Mu Yangling found a comfortable position in his arms and lay down, and the two of them leaned close together. Chi Heiran hugged her, turned over, lay on his side and looked at his wife, and said in a low voice, Aling, I was wrong yesterday, I was annoyed when I heard you talk about separation so easily. I didn't choose what to say. Mu Yangling also turned sideways to him, and asked in a low voice, Heiran, tell me honestly, do you have lust for other women? Seeing his hesitation, she hurriedly said, be honest, for better or worse, I don't blame you. You won't settle accounts after the autumn. Mu Yangling nodded, if you don't settle the score after the autumn, the two of us will have a frank and honest talk. If you get out of this bed, it will definitely not be counted as the bed's score. Chi Heiran looked at Mu Yangling seriously, as if he was assessing the credibility, and after a while, he said, I don't have any lust for anyone, but when the big guys drink together, it is inevitable that the women from Zayifang will accompany them. There are many beautiful and delicate people, but I didn't do anything to them, Chi Heiran quickly clarified, seeing that Mu Yangling nodded, and there was no expression of anger on his face, he said more carefully, but I am always worried that if one day I was drunk, someone sent me and those girls to make a pile, what should I do if I made a mistake in a daze? Chi Heiran said in a depressed mood, those women are just objects, but if it hurts your heart, will you leave me because of it? Mu Yangling touched his face and asked, so you are worried that you don't have enough self-control, and I will leave you, right? Chi Heiran thought for a while, and said, this is just one of them. I want to know whether I am too light in your heart to make a single mistake. Aling, I always feel that your heart is too erratic. Sometimes I always feel if one fails to catch you, it will fly away. Mu Yangling was taken aback for a moment, and then smiled wryly, why do you think you are so light in my heart? Mu Yangling grabbed his hand and put it on his heart, whispering, you are the most beautiful person in the world. People who understand me, most of the place in their hearts is you. Chi Heiran's eyes turned hot, but his mouth opened wide. He felt that this was the most beautiful love story he had ever heard. Mu Yangling was silent for a long time, then sighed, Heiran, I always feel that the mind and the body should be the same. If one day you have desires for women other than me, does that mean you like her a little bit, but you don't like me? Likes have decreased a little. Chi Heiran quickly shook his head, how could I like you less? He hugged Mu Yangling and said, Aling, don't think about it, I was the one who got into a dead end before, and I will never think about it that way again. Don't you care about it? Chi Heiran shook his head, it's amazing. Mu Yangling said, it's nothing if you get up, but if you really want to have a relationship with someone else, although I may not be willing to leave you, I will definitely be sad. If you are sad too many times, you will give up. If you die, you will die, it doesn't matter if we're together or not. Chi Heiran hugged Mu Yangling's hand tightly, and he remembered Mu Yangling's crying last night. At that time, he was heartbroken and felt that he would never let her cry again for the rest of his life. Mu Yang moved his head, leaned against Chi Heiran's chest and lay quietly, thinking that this should be the case first. She was reluctant to part with Chi Heiran, and also reluctant to part with this family. Chi Heiran didn't really make a mistake, so let's live like this for now. She knew she had some ostriches, but she didn't want to get to the bottom of it right now. Chi Heiran hugged Mu Yangling, suddenly felt a little uneasy, and said, I've finished talking about mine, it's your turn to say it. Say what? Chi Heiran asked carefully, what kind of man do you like? Mu Yangling couldn't help laughing, I like you like this, handsome and tall, straightforward personality, don't I like you now? The corner of Chi Heiran's mouth curled up involuntarily, and he placed his chin on the top of Mu Yangling's head, held her hand on her stomach with his right hand, and promised in a low voice, Aling, hold your hand and grow old with you. A tear fell silently from Mu Yangling's eyes, and he clasped his hands back tightly. When the two came out of the house, their complexions had improved a lot, and the servants breathed a sigh of relief. They were sent away from a distance yesterday, but there was a lot of movement in the house. Although they couldn't hear the details, they still knew that the couple had quarreled. Today, Chi Heiran's face was stinky, and the servants couldn't help but feel anxious. Seeing that the husband and wife are reconciled as before, they are all relieved. Chi Heiran was a little cautious with Mu Yangling when he moved, and looked up at her face from time to time. When Mu Yangling met his eyes, he always smiled slightly. Although she had a gentle attitude, Chi Heiran still found that she was always in a daze from time to time. Chi Heiran felt a little uneasy, and looked at Mu Yangling even more closely. Xiao Xia found something unusual between the two of them, and when she got home, she was worried. Master, are the brothers and sisters angry with the prince from time to time because of Jinhua? What's so angry about her? Fan Zijin said indifferently, Haoran didn't bother with those golden flowers and silver flowers. That's what I said, but... Okay, Fan Zijin got up and said, it will be fine if they fight. After 2 or 3 days, seeing that Chi Heiran still didn't see much joy on his face, Fan Zijin took a chance to find Mu Yangling when Chi Heiran was not around, and asked straight to the point, what are you guys doing? It's nothing, Mu Yangling said weakly, it will be fine when I get over this. Fan Zijin was angry, when you get over it, Heiran will be in a hurry to death. I really don't know what you two are doing, you have a good life, but you have to think about it, why did Heiran treat you badly? Look outside, who loves you like him? I baby him too. That's why he is rare, Fan Zijin interrupted her, there are many people in this world who are willing to treat him as well as you do. If you continue to do this to death, I will find him too who are more sensible and smarter than you, gentle and considerate. Mu Yangling looked at Fan Zijin speechlessly, are you here to persuade us to fight or to persuade us to fight? Fan Zijin looked at Mu Yangling persistently, and Mu Yangling said, it's useless for you to look for them, they're not me, Heiran won't like them. Since you know, what are you still struggling with? Now that the person is in your hands, you won't be separated from the two places. Yeah, what is she struggling with? Mu Yangling was shocked, looked at him with piercing eyes and said, you're right, the man is still in my hands. If she can't keep him, it's because she has no ability. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 619. Chi Heiran dismounted, threw the rein to Fei Bai with a sullen face. Fei Bai quickly turned around and gave the rein to Xiao Ting, and followed cautiously. Chi Heiran walked quickly to the main courtyard, stopped at the door, tried his best to pull the corners of his mouth, showing a smile. Fei Bai said in a crying voice, "Master, you might as well not smile." Chi Heiran glared at him, stood at the gate of the courtyard for a long time, and finally went in with a smile, and went straight to the east wing, which opened up 2 rooms and faced the sun as expected. Mu Yangling and the child were here, still Ingenda drenched in sweat. He ran around the house, yelling "Wow!" and waving the wooden sword in his hand. Seeing his father coming in, little Xiong charged at him wielding a wooden sword. Chi Heiran dodged his sword, hugged him directly, and said with a smile, "Stinky boy, if you are capable, you can use a sword." Mu Yangling laughed and said, "Where does he know how to use a sword? Children dancers play it. When he is a few years older, teach him martial arts." "Didn't you say that you started practicing martial arts when you were 3 years old?" Seeing Mu Yangling's full smile, Chi Heiran's smile was not as forced as it was a few days ago, and he was happy in his heart, but he said with caution on his face, "It's 3 years old, so when this kid turns 3 years old, we will also teach him martial arts." "Well, when you come to teach, this kid's strength is gradually growing. I plan to teach him to use his own strength first." Seeing Mu Yangling's peaceful face, Chi Heiran breathed a sigh of relief, and didn't dislike his son's warmth, so he hugged him and sat next to her, and said with a flattering smile, "I remember you said before that you are all made of small stones and mud. If you practice control, I will ask people to prepare things when I turn back." Mu Yangling nodded. Chi Heiran saw her peaceful expression and tenderness in her eyes, so he stretched out his hand to hold her, and slowly stroked the calluses in her palm. "Why are you so happy today?" Mu Yangling gave him a sideways glance, and said, "When am I not like this?" "You think too much." After a pause, Mu Yangling asked again, "Why, I'm not good like this." Chi Heiran nodded quickly, and said with a silly smile, "Okay, it's very good of you." Seeing his dumbfounded appearance, Mu Yangling couldn't help being amused. Chi Heiran saw his wife was happy, and he smiled cheerfully, but the little bear in his arms was angry, seeing that he couldn't get out of his father's embrace no matter what, and his parents only cared about him. Talking to himself, no matter how much he yelled, he ignored him, and suddenly yelled angrily, and hit his father in the face with a slap. The crisp sound sounded, and the couple were stunned. Chi Heiran only felt a slight numbness in his cheek, and touched his right cheek, but Mu Yangling saw Chi Heiran's face turned red quickly, and then a small bird appeared. Handprint. The little bear took the opportunity to break free from Chi Heiran's arms, screaming angrily "Wow!" and from time to time looked at Mu Yangling's complaints with tears in his eyes. Chi Heiran asked in a daze, "What did he say?" Mu Yangling hurriedly stepped forward to pull the little bear, and said, "He said you were too hot, and he was sweating from hugging him, and he was uncomfortable." Mu Yangling touched the child's back clothes, only to find that he was sweating profusely, early sweating wet. It was only then that Chi Heiran realized that his chest was also wet. It could be seen how much the child had sweated just now. He was apologetic, and hurriedly said, "I'll ask someone to wash him with hot water, and then I'll ask the imperial doctor to come over and show him. This must be too much sweating. Kainan is hot, so don't get sick from stuffiness." Little Xiong took a bath and changed into dry clothes. He felt comfortable at last. He was not bothering anyone at this time. He sat on the couch by himself, touched his face, then kissed the cheek that was slapped by him, and after a while, Chi Heiran's face was covered with saliva. Chi Heiran's face turned red, but his heart was filled with irony. He hugged his son and put him on his lap, saying, "Father doesn't hurt. Next time if you are still not feeling well, you can beat him." When Mu Yangling came over with a dry towel and heard it, he couldn't help pushing him, and said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? You can't teach children badly." While twisting Chi Heiran's hair, she said to her son, "You have great strength, So you can't greet people casually in the future, you know. Why mother taught you to control your strength before you talk. Little bear didn't know if he understood, anyway, he kept nodding his head hard. Chi-Heiran, who was hugging his son, was a little worried, and asked in a low voice, why can't he speak? This is 1.5 years old, and after the new year, he will be 2 years old. They are all 3 years old this year. Mu Yangling has never raised a child, but she has always asked other people's children, and said, boys speak late, and it is common for them to speak after 1 or 2 years old. The imperial doctor also said that there is no problem. Chi-Heiran nodded. The little bear suddenly pushed away his father's hand and climbed onto the couch, playing with his own toy. Chi-Heiran blinked, pinched his ear and said, why are you suddenly unhappy? Mu Yangling was thoughtful when he saw it. After the couple coaxed the child to sleep at night, Mu Yangling said in a low voice, in the future, don't talk to the premise about your son, and don't say that he is not good or inferior to others. Although the child is young, he understands, we should praise him more. Chi-Heiran let out a hum, and seeing Mu Yangling turned over to go to sleep, he couldn't help asking, has Zijin been here today? Well, Mu Yangling yawned and asked, what's wrong? Chi-Heiran said with a sour face, did he persuade you, so you figured it out? Mu Yangling didn't notice the jealous look on Chi-Heiran's face, so he nodded and said, yes. Chi-Heiran's heart was like being soaked in a jar of vinegar. He muttered, why can't I persuade you, and he will persuade you once he persuades you. Mu Yangling was overjoyed today, and determined again to align Heiran and maintain the family, so he was very sleepy. At this time, half of him went to meet Zhou Gong alone, so he didn't hear Chi-Heiran's muttering, but unconsciously said, he's saying that you are good to me. I also figured it out, as long as we work hard, our life will always be good. Chi-Heiran muttered dissatisfiedly, I need someone else to tell you how good I am to you. Turning around, he saw that Mu Yangling had closed his eyes and was sleeping peacefully, so he hugged him in his arms, and fell asleep in a comfortable position. He complained with his mouth, but he was grateful to Fan Zijin in his heart. Therefore, Chi-Heiran would not hesitate to smile whenever he appeared in front of Fan Zijin for a few days. I found a restaurant here to deliver lunch to Fan Zijin. Fan Zijin ate for a few days, and one day he couldn't help but asked, where did your master get the money? Xiaoting, who came to deliver the food, was taken aback when he heard the words, and immediately said, don't worry, Mr. Cousin, what our master sent is his own money, and it's useless from the public account. Well, does your master have private money? Fan Zijin asked curiously. No, but our master just received the monthly payment this month, so he paid for the food in the restaurant first. The master said that the cousin has a bad stomach, and the food in the army is rough, and eating too much can't make it. Okay, Fan Zijin interrupted him with a wave of his hand, I see, you can go down. Chi-Heiran has a lot of money, and his monthly money is not much at all. Fan Zijin thought about finding a reason to send some money to Chi-Heiran, and then thought about it, this kid has reached out to him for some money on business. He is not soft on his hands. If he subsidizes him in private, the public is afraid that he will be even more relentless. Fan Zijin suppressed his thoughts, wanting to let Chi-Heiran have a hard time before talking. Xiaoting had a bitter face, he didn't know where he said the wrong thing. He came back to learn from Fei Bai, was scolded by him, and returned home dejectedly, but bumped into Guyu who was in the princess's room. Guyu asked, what's the matter with you? Did you get scolded for not doing your best? The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 620. Guyu is one of the two big girls around the princess. She is very popular in the mansion. Besides, she has a good temper and loves friendship. If anyone in the mansion has difficulties, she will help if she can, so she is the most popular, better than Li Shun, who has always been more popular. Although Xiaoting didn't get along with Guyu for a long time, he still treated her like a sister, so he pulled her aside and explained the whole thing, saying, I sent the food box over according to Brother Fibe's order. You can't do anything, and you messed up the job, but why was he scolded? Guyu smiled and nodded his forehead, and said, what a fool, who told you to tell Biao young master everything you should and shouldn't say? Guyu said with a smile, I ordered meals for Biao Gongzi for the sake of Biao Gongzi's health. As long as Biao Gongzi knows this kind of heart, he should not tell Biao Gongzi about the monthly money. Biao Gongzi is open-minded. I thought it was master who asked you to claim credit in front of Biao Gongzi, Guyu said in a low voice, you, after all, are young, you still have a lot to learn from Brother Fibe, learn slowly. Xiaoting lowered his head in thought. Guyu told Mu Yangling about this when he went back, and then said, Your Majesty knows, the prince has always been generous, and I don't know how much monthly money is left. How much Chi Heiran's monthly money is left, I'm afraid even he doesn't know, he has to ask Fei Bai, but Mu Yangling is related to another, the food in the army is terrible. The girls in the room shook their heads, they hadn't eaten yet. Mu Yangling lowered his head and thought for a while, and said, yes, this is not in the 5th battalion. The skills of the fire soldiers are almost normal. Li Shun, please inform the kitchen that you need an extra portion of the prince's daily purchases. Here we are, get it ready and send it to him. There are cooks at home, and there are countless servants. She is really worried that the servants are too busy and have no work to do. Since this is the case, it is better to deliver meals to Chi Heiran. The cousin. Go to Xiaoting and get a menu and come back and let me have a look. Fan Zijian's menu was set by Chi Heiran himself. It not only included some of Fan Zijian's favorite dishes, but also had a good nutritional mix. Most importantly, there were several dishes that nourished the stomach. Mu Yangling handed the list to the cook and asked, can you make it? The cook was brought from the capital. She is more familiar with the cuisines of the capital than the restaurants in Qianan. Hearing this, she patted her chest and said, Princess, don't worry. I am familiar with these dishes. I can cook them with my eyes closed. Mu Yangling said, then buy another copy according to this list, and when the time comes, it will be ready and sent to Biao Gongzi, and there will be no need for the restaurant. Anyway, both of them are in the barracks, one is sending it off, and the other is also sending it off. As soon as Xiaoting rolled his eyes, he asked with a shy face, Madam, the deposit for the restaurant. Mu Yangling said, forget it, we missed the appointment after all. Xiaoting was a little disappointed. Mu Yangling didn't tell Chi Heiran about this in advance, she decided to give him a surprise, so she rolled up her sleeves and planned to cook for Chi Hao after seeing him off the next day. Chi Heiran likes to eat meat, and Mu Yangling likes it too, but she also likes to eat vegetables, so vegetables are indispensable in every meal. Chi Heiran is as long as possible, the chopsticks will never forget the turn of the vegetable plate. Xiao Xiang has inherited his father at a young age bad habit. So for the sake of his health, Mu Yangling put vegetables in his bowl forcibly every time he ate, forced him to eat with his eyes, and warned him who wanted to throw away the vegetables, your son is watching, look, he only focused on meat at a young age, and if he learns from you, wouldn't he not eat any green vegetables? Dr. Wang can say that green vegetables are an essential supplement for the human body, so eat them quickly. With her supervision, Chi Heiran can twist so easily. Without her watching, it is even more impossible to eat vegetables, so Mu Yangling thought for a while, and finally put the vegetables on the 2 meat dishes after cooking. In the middle of the dishes, the food was cooked according to Chi Heiran's quantity. When she handed the food box to Xiaoting, she said, you have to watch the prince eat it all, and tell the prince not to waste it. If there is any left over, I will know more. Xiaoting hurriedly nodded in response, and hurriedly went to deliver a food box to Chi Heiran. When he arrived at the barracks, he was rushing for lunch, and Chi Heiran was eating a steamed bun. When he saw Xiaoting coming over with 2 food boxes, frowning slightly, "Why did you bring the food box here?" Xiaoting smiled and said, "Master, this is specially made for you by the princess." Chi Heiran's eyes lit up, feeling that Aling has become more and more considerate recently. Xiaoting put Fan Zijian's food box aside, and opened Chi Heiran's first. There were only 2 layers inside. The upper layer was still hot rice, and the lower layer was vegetables. Chi Heiran looked at it, and it was his favorite food. You can tell by the color that Aling made the braised pork, because the color is not red enough, nor bright enough, and even the meat is not fat enough, but Chi Heiran likes it. Xiaoting smiled and said, "The princess also said that if the prince likes it, she will cook and bring it to you every day from now on." Chi Heiran was happy, really. Of course it's true, the little one dares to lie to the Lord, so Lord, you have to finish all the food, otherwise the little one will take the leftovers back, and the princess may think you don't like it. Not doing it? Chi Heiran immediately said with disdain, "This amount is enough to fill my stomach." Chi Heiran picked up a piece of braised pork and asked, "Only one dish?" Although he likes to eat braised pork, having only one dish for a meal is a bit monotonous. Xiaoting immediately said, "There are 3 paths, all of which are below." Chi Heiran curled his lips, "Your concubine didn't understand the food box for the first time, and you didn't know to remind me that this dish should be served separately. If there is no big food box in the house, go buy one." Xiaoting smiled and stood aside to watch. Chi Heiran had only picked up 2 chopsticks of braised pork, and pulled out a large chopstick of vegetables from underneath. Chi Heiran blinked, and poked his chopsticks down. Under the vegetables was a stir-fried turtle dove. Chi Heiran looked at the vegetables, and instantly understood Mu Yangling's intentions. He turned back and said to Xiaoting, "Go back and tell the princess that she made it. I ate all the vegetables." Xiaoting stared blankly at the vegetables in the food box. Chi Heiran curled his lips, and ate honestly. Of course he knew that it was not enough to eat meat without being a vegetarian, but he was happy to see Mu Yangling anxiously surrounding him, or staring at him angrily. Only then did Xiaoting breathe a sigh of relief, and Chi Heiran stared quietly at the other food box and said, "What time is it? Why don't you send it to Mr. Biao?" Xiaoting patted his forehead, and hurriedly carried the food box to Fan Zijian. Fan Zijian's dishes are not mixed together. His food box is large, with 2 rows horizontally and 3 rows vertically. Xiaoting gently opened the food box, first took out the rice, and then the top dishes, and finally a soup. 4 dishes and 1 soup filled the table. The quantity was not large, but it was more delicate than the restaurant. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 621. Fan Zijian raised his eyebrows slightly, and said with a smile, "Your concubine has a heart." In the evening Chi Heiran came back in a huff, kissed Mu Yangling and said, "I know you are thinking about me all the time. Don't worry, although I don't like vegetarians, as long as it is made by you, I will eat everything." Mu Yangling pursed his lips and smiled, and the next day he didn't mix all the dishes together. It was the same as Fan Zijian's, and they were all served separately. They were all 4 dishes and 1 soup, but Chi Heiran's had 3 meat and 1 vegetable, while Fan Zijian's was 2 meat and 2 vegetables, and Chi Heiran's dishes are Mu Yangling's slightly rough craftsmanship, while Fan Zijian's dishes are carefully prepared by the cook. After cooking like this for a few days, Mu Yangling studied hard with the cook again, and his cooking skills, which hadn't improved for many years, got better and better. Fan Zijian saw that the couple looked like honey, their teeth were sore. He turned around and found something for them to do. "This is a post from Miao village. Jian's eldest son and son-in-law have returned, and invited us to visit. Chi Heiran waved his hand and said, "You can go to this kind of thing, otherwise, send the people under you." Although Chi Heiran didn't have second-rank generals under his command, third-rank generals were not young or old, and they were qualified enough to attend the banquet in Miao village. However, Fan Zijian said, 1/3 of the Han people in southern Guizhou, nearly 2/3 of the Miao people, and the remaining few are Yao and other ethnic groups. They should not be feared, but the Miao people have to fight good relationship. The conflict between the Han people and the Miao people has been going on for a long time, but I am a soldier, and I am only responsible for training soldiers and guarding the southwest and northwest borders. This political affairs should be the concern of the local officials. Didn't the eldest brother send Mr. Lu to be the prefect of Guizhou? When will he arrive? Appoint. Mr. Lu failed the Jinshi examination back then, but Mu Yangling asked Fan Zijian to help him line up to get an official position as a county magistrate in the name of Juren. With Mu Yangling's relationship, he has already been labeled as Chi Heiran. In just 2 or 3 years, he was promoted from county magistrate to county magistrate, and in less than half a year, Chi Ziyuan made him the magistrate of Guizhou after he ascended the throne. Guizhou is very poor, but no matter how poor it is still a magistrate. At this time, Mr. Lu is grateful to Dade, and rushes here quickly. Fan Zijian was more concerned with political affairs than Chi Heiran. Hearing this, he said, "We'll be there in 4 or 5 days, he said. "Why do you think elder brother let Mr. Lu come to Guizhou? It's not because he belongs to us, elder brother obviously is. I want you to adjust the relationship between Han and Miao." Chi Heiran pondered. During the reign of Emperor Sejong, the imperial court treated the ethnic minorities and the Han people in the same way. Taxes, and labor were the same. Even because the ethnic minorities lived in remote and barren areas, Emperor Sejong had tax reduction and exemption policies every year. It can be said that, at that time, everyone was united as one. Although Chi Heiran didn't like reading very much, he was familiar with history books. After Jiaozong came to the throne, several emperors after Jiaozong were a bit extravagant. In addition, wars began to rise in the northwest, north and northeast. The wealth accumulated by Emperor Sejong was gradually exhausted, and the treasury was empty. It is a proposal to increase the taxation of ethnic minorities in the south of Guizhou, the northwest, and the north. For nearly 100 years after King Sejong, the lives of ethnic minorities have become more and more difficult, and the taxes have become heavier. The Han people have been taxed enough, and their taxes are 3 times heavier than the Han people. If they hadn't gathered together to help each other, I am afraid that more than half of them will starve to death. But it is also because it is born of a gathering of ethnic groups, it is easier to raise troops to rebel. In the past 2 decades, there have been ethnic minority rebellions in southern Guizhou. Nan, after a lot of burning, killing and looting, Chi Heiran still couldn't catch them. Could it be that the eldest brother wants to imitate Emperor Sejong and subdue the Miao people psychologically? Fan Zijian said, "In the past 2 months or so, I have often been walking in the city. I have seen that the Han people and the Miao people live separately. The Han people often look down on the Miao people and other ethnic minorities, and the Miao people also hate the Han people. Things happened, but there were a lot of fights. Heiran, Mr. Lu, a powerless scholar, how could he manage the brave Miao people? The big cousin sent him to be the magistrate. I'm afraid it's because of you. After all, he is your man and will not stop you from doing things. But the military and government have always been separated. Of course the military and government must be separated, but if Mr. Lu asks for your support, for the sake of local and national security, you can help." Chi Heiran was in deep thought, and at night he grabbed a pen and wrote a letter to Chi Ziyuan. Mu Yangling rubbed ink for him at the side, and said, "I have visited Guizhou city for the past few days, and found that only a small number of merchants in the city can speak the common language, and most of them speak their own dialects. If Han people and Miao people, when people buy and sell things, they can only gesticulate, communicate in this way, not to mention that the imperial court treats Han people and Miao people separately. Even if they treat them equally, there will be problems. Chi Heiran bit the tip of his pen and said, Qianan seldom communicates with the outside world. It's normal that the common language is rarely used. They all speak Zhezhou dialect. But I think there are very few people who can speak Zhezhou dialect. It's okay for Han people. Most of them can speak it. Miao people are born in a group of ethnic groups. They rarely come out of Miao villages. Few of them can speak Zhezhou dialect. I think, if you want to manage Qianan well, the first thing is to open a school to let everyone learn the common language. The younger ones can learn slowly, and the children learn the language quickly. The older ones only need to learn some daily communication needs, and the rest will be fine. You can let the children in their own family teach. Chi Heiran frowned, and said, then this is completely aimed at the Miao people. I'm afraid the Miao people don't want it. Besides, it costs a lot to open a school. The yamen in Zhezhou seems to be very poor. It's just that it's too poor to look directly at. The government office is dilapidated, the wall in the backyard is not collapsed, but it is also mottled, the roof is in disrepair for a long time. I haven't seen that Chi Heiran is now temporarily renting the house of the squire. No, would you like to live in the government office? Mu Yangling coughed lightly, and obviously knew the reason. He thought for a while and said, why don't we collect donations from the government office? The lower officials and gentry will definitely follow, and the children who enter the school don't need to pay, just come in and read. Chi Heiran's eyes lit up. In addition to teaching common language, we should also teach them the Analects of Confucius, and teach them the principles of monarchs, ministers, fathers, and sons. At that time, all Miao children will have learned ethics. 10 or 20 years later, the children grew up and became the new generation. He dare not say that there will be no more rebellions, but the number of wars should be reduced a lot. Mu Yang was tongue-tied. Her original intention was just to teach Chinese, so that everyone would not have conflicts under the same language, who knew that Chi Heiran would directly launch a cultural invasion. Seeing Chi Heiran excitedly writing to Chi Ziyuan, Mu Yangling decided to go down and prepare a supper for him. Otherwise, with Chi Heiran's habit of writing wherever he thought of, he would probably be hungry tonight. Chi Heiran did write more, and finally wrote a thick stack of paper. He originally wanted to check for typos, but when he saw it was so thick, he immediately lost his mood. He just waited for the ink on it to dry before folding it and stuffing it into a big envelope. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 622. Chi Ziyuan was taken aback when he received Chi Heiran's letter. Wouldn't he send the official document he wanted to deal with as a letter? After reading the letter, Chi Ziyuan began to think deeply. He promoted Lu Qing to the prefect of Zhezhou to make things easier for Chi Heiran, but he didn't think that with just a few years of tenure, he could clear up the affairs of the ethnic minorities. Emperor Sejong worked hard for nearly 20 years, so it's easy to get better, but in the end, the next generation's grandchildren ruined his previous 20 years of hard work with just a bit of extravagance. So what Chi Ziyuan wants to do is to formulate a system, and fix some policies through laws and oracles. Even if the future generations are unworthy, the government will not be too ignorant, and the Chi family's country can be maintained for a longer period of time. Of course, this is just a faint thought in Chi Ziyuan's mind. It's too early to talk about it now. All he can do is try his best to smooth out the affairs of the state and live a better life first. Regarding Chi Heiran's proposal, Chi Ziyuan could only reply with 4 words. Picture it slowly. There is no emperor who doesn't want to be a Ming Jun, and doesn't want to be famous in history. All they want is their ability, morality, and self-control. Didn't Emperor Jinjian have the ambition to be a king through the ages? Yes, but he lacks ability, lacks morality, and even has negative self-control. which is why he has suffered such a crushing defeat. Qi Ziyuan is able to subdue the hearts of the army, and his charm and ability can be seen from the support of so many people. He also loves the common people, and he is a military commander himself. Self-control is the most basic for people who are born and died, and he can be called the first among them, so there is nothing missing now. It depends on whether God will give him this opportunity, give his country, and his subjects a chance to recuperate. As long as he gets this opportunity, he will not die young or anything, and he will have a great chance to become a Mingjun with a long history. At this time, Qi Heiran didn't know his elder brother's thinking and the responsibilities he was about to entrust. He was glaring at Mu Yangling with a puffy face, saying that he didn't agree with her wearing the clothes sent by Miao village. Soon it will be the year of the Miao. At that time, there will be a party in the larger Miao village in southern Guizhou. This year, it is the turn of the Miao village in Jian. Because the Miao year is the most grand festival for the Miao people, Jian sent Miao clothes in advance. Presenting Miao costumes to distinguished guests is their highest treatment, because Qi Heiran also intends to establish a good relationship with the Miao people, so he wants to wear the Miao costumes they sent. But Qi Heiran is okay, but Mu Yangling's clothes are long sleeves, revealing a small arm. Before Mu Yangling noticed anything wrong, Qi Heiran was not happy. If you can see it yourself, it's fine to wear it in the house, but why should you wear it for other men to see? So Qi Heiran changed his mind temporarily. He didn't wear Miao clothes, he wanted to wear his own court clothes, and Mu Yangling also wore imperial clothes. The royal clothes are so heavy, are you sure you want me to wear them for a day? Besides, you don't mind wearing court clothes on a hot day. Although it was already autumn, the temperature in Qianan was still quite high, and it was sweltering hot. Qi Heiran felt sweat dripping down his face even though he was only wearing 2 clothes. At this moment, his forehead was covered with sweat. He wiped the sweat, and complained in a low voice, "Didn't Jiangnan start to get cold when you came here? You're all wearing jackets, why is it still so hot here? It's the 9th month of the lunar calendar, and it's about to enter winter." Mu Yangling has never been to Qianan in his previous life, so he really doesn't know what the weather in Qianan should be like at this time. Mu Yangling changed the Miao clothes and folded them, and said, "Why don't people change them, just make the sleeves longer? I heard that all the Miao tribes with more than 1,000 people in southern Guizhou will come to the rally. We wear Miao Fu's appearance is at least an attitude, at least it can make them feel at ease." Mu Yangling didn't want to challenge the etiquette of the Han people, so he returned his clothes to Jian and made his request. Jian called his eldest son and son-in-law, and Jianyang frowned and said, "If you change it, it will not conform to the etiquette system. The dresses of the women of their family are the most noble dresses with half-length sleeves," but Jian's son-in-law Chen Jiake laughed and said, "Han people value chastity, which is what they should be. Brother, don't think it doesn't conform to our etiquette. The etiquette shared by both sides is the best, so let people make the sleeves of the dress longer, and embroider our family flowers on it to show solemnity." Jian nodded again and again, "It's good to do what the family said, so let's do it. Jiake, I will leave this matter to you, and when you finish it later, you will send it to the princess yourself. Last time your sister-in-law annoyed the princess. I hope she doesn't mind." Chen Jiake nodded with a smile, then paused and said, "Why don't you let my uncle go with me so that we can talk about the tone of the court? Although we can also be exempted from tax for 3 years, this year is the first year, and 3 years will pass quickly. In the past, I didn't know how high our taxes would be." Talking about this, Jian was worried, and said regretfully, "It's a pity that Xixia soldiers rushed too fast, otherwise we might really be able to break away from the imperial court and become one with Dali." Chen Jiake frowned slightly, and said in a low voice, "Father-in-law, it's better for us to forget about this matter. In fact, merging into Dali may not be a good thing. It was a last resort to have this idea before. After all, das whose taxes are getting heavier. I can't bear it, but now that the new dynasty is established, the country needs to recuperate, and Daki's national strength is not bad, so staying in Daki must be better than merging into Dali. Yes, Dad, I also feel that Dali's envoys have bad intentions. They just agreed to form an alliance with us, and when they turned around and encountered Xixia soldiers, they all fled. If Prince Chi hadn't brought a large army to attack Xixia soldiers, we might not. They are all dead. While speaking, Chi Heiran was full of admiration. Jian looked at his son speechlessly, turned his head and said to his son-in-law earnestly, "You are a talented person, you have to help the big boy well, this child is too careless." Chen Jiake couldn't help laughing, and hurriedly said, "Father-in-law, you are worrying too much. I think it's very good that uncle is like this, who in the younger generation in the village refuses to accept brother-in-law." Ji Eniang nodded, annoyed. "Abba, you will criticize me, what's wrong with me worshipping heroes?" "That's right, but we Miao people have been oppressed by the Han people for generations. If we can get far away from them, we should not get too close to them, lest we be sold and count the money for them." Seeing his father-in-law frowning worriedly, Chen Jiake couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Not all Han people bully the Miao people, but the imperial court's policy is skewed. People are harsh. For example, when the Han people and the Miao people have a dispute, the officials will be more biased towards the Han people. Whether it is right or wrong, the Miao people will be punished more severely than the Han people for the same crime, and the Miao people will be rewarded less than the Han people for the same merit. Getting heavier and heavier. To solve this kind of thing, the only way is to go through the court. The policy of the court is not tilted, or the tilt is smaller. In this way, the Miao people can get more time to recuperate, and the conflict between the Miao people and the Han people can also be postponed. Chen Jiake is Han Chinese, and he has been studying since he was a child. After 20 years, he has already understood the essence of it.